Okay, the unit that we've started this week is about conflict. So today we're going to be talking about responding to conflict, and that is on this page right here. Okay, actually yesterday I asked you what is conflict, and we said that conflict is a disagreement, dispute, or fight between people with opposing points of view. This could be with family members, this could be with friends, individuals, groups, community organizations. It's kind of like that endless thing. And then the question that I'd ask you for the day was describe a type of conflict that is long-standing. Most of you said something like a family conflict, like family feuds. It could be a neighbors fighting over property. It could be sports rivalries, like you like this team, that person likes that team. Political stuff could be a conflict. And so those are just a few examples of conflict. We talked about types of conflict. Some are internal, some are destructive tactics, such as getting into a fight because it leads to something negative. We talked about the 3 causes of conflicts. Instant flare-ups was one. The second one was personality differences, and the third one was power issues. So responding to conflict is this section for today. When a conflict develops, you can either face it or ignore it. Before deciding which course of action to take, consider these points. Your personal well-being and safety should be your first concern when there's a conflict. Your personal well-being and safety. I think this is really important. The second one I think is really important. Walking away from a potentially dangerous situation is a positive choice, not a sign of cowardice. So no one is going to think you're a coward if you walk away from a dangerous situation that could lead to something that harms your life. Weigh issues that lead to conflict. If the other person is a stranger or someone you'll never see again, it may be the best to walk away. If the other person is someone you care about, try to communicate your feelings in a calm and reasonable way. Conflicts are usually never solved if people are screaming and yelling at each other. You may not even understand what the other person is saying, and then you misinterpret it, and then it causes even more conflict. So be aware of that. In some cases, people let conflicts escalate or grow into disagreements that are destructive or unsafe to everyone concerned. Some teens think getting involved in a conflict may prove they're tough and fearless. Unfortunately, getting out of a difficult situation or conflict isn't as easy as getting into one. So getting out of the situation is harder than it was to even get into the conflict. Okay, on the side here it says tips, recognizing conflict. To identify early signs of conflict, listen for verbal signs that a problem exists. The verbal signs are name calling, insults, arguments, yelling, threats. Those are verbal comments. Leave the scene if a conflict has the potential to become physical, shoving, pushing, or grabbing, slapping, kicking, showing, or using weapons. So leave the scene, leave the situation immediately if those things start happening. How to resolve conflict. Whether you become engaged in a conflict that seems unavoidable. Oh, I guess it'd help if I turn the page. All right, there it is, right there. How to resolve conflict. I'm looking at a book, that's why it's easier for my eyes to see it in the book. Okay, so whether you become engaged in a conflict that seems unavoidable or one that tests your pride or values, you can learn to resolve conflicts in a peaceful way. Conflict resolution. The process of settling a conflict by cooperating and problem solving is a proven approach. So that is the definition for conflict resolution. Process of settling a conflict by cooperating and problem solving in a proven approach. Conflict resolution takes work. on both sides. But anyone can learn problem-solving skills. Anyone can learn how to communicate effectively. So this says here, steps to conflict resolution. Conflict resolution lets people involved in a dispute work out a solution to their problem. They try to brainstorm together to bring the conflict to an end by following these steps. So number 1, you should define the problem. Like, what is the problem? What is the problem with the situation, an individual, an argument, a conflict? Each person takes a turn describing the problem from his or her point of view. Each person shows the other respect. Sometimes people get to number 1 and then they solve the conflict right there in number 1 when they try to figure out what the problem is in the first place, which is a good thing. Okay, but in other cases you have to go on to number 2, which is suggest a solution. Each person suggests a solution to the problem. And this is where communication comes into play too, because each person in the group should be able to share their solution. Number 3, evaluate a solution. Each person identifies the parts of the solution that he or she agrees with or can't accept. And number 4 is about compromise. If the parties are fairly close to agreement, they may compromise. This involves settling the conflict by each agreeing to give up something that he or she wanted. Number 5 is brainstorm. If individuals can't compromise, they brainstorm different ways to approach the problem and try again to reach a compromise. And number 6, mediate. And sometimes it does come down to this. In a conflict resolution, mediate means if no solution is reached, the persons ask a neutral third party to listen to their problem and make suggestions to resolve it. So maybe you and a friend argue all the time, and then it's like it takes that third friend to come in and say, hey, let's try to talk about this problem and get it worked out. So how could you use these steps to deal with conflict with others is my question for the day. So how could you use these steps to deal with conflict with others? Okay, that's going to be the end of this lesson for today on conflict resolution.